2, 1.
Hello again, and welcome to another edition of Media Watch. I'm your co-host, Eric Tait.
I'm Bob Anthony.
And I'm Raymond Peterson.
And it's brought to you by the good graces of EVT Educational Productions and Manhattan Neighborhood Network. So we're pre-taping on a Wednesday before our normal Monday air date, so we'll kind of do a overview recap of stuff that's been percolating in the news. I doubt if we'll do anything about Kavanaugh, except maybe peripherally, because everybody else is talking about Kavanaugh. But why don't we start with stuff we usually use for the back end of the show, namely being black in America. How's that for a jump
That'll
off?
work, yes, because
Right.
we've been so neck deep in the other stuff. That'll be kind of refreshing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So for me, and Raymond, I know you've been keeping up on this, the big news for us on a story that we definitely followed quite a bit when it was ongoing breaking news was the Chicago police, the cover-up, LaQuan MacDonald is shooting, and this goes back to prior to 2015 because I believe he was shot 2 years or a year and a half prior to that, and then there was this police cover-up and there was the video. So bring us up to speed a little on that, Raymond.
Well, an interesting thing that I didn't know was that the officer involved in the shooting wasn't charged until the day that the video was released, apparently. Just before the video was released, he was charged. Not indicted, but charged. And he still had to go through the legal process of indicting him, et cetera, et cetera. And it's quite obvious why, if you've seen the video. The young man, LaQuan, is running away from the police. His back is turned, and he's just shot for no reason that I can see. I mean, he wasn't threatening. He wasn't holding a weapon. He
had a knife. He had a knife.
He had a
and
knife.
He had slashed.
I'm sorry.
He had slashed a tire, but
he's not going to hurt anybody with it when he's 50 yards away.
Well, I mean, the knife wasn't anywhere long enough to give anybody any kind of problem from the distance the cops were standing.
Right, exactly.
I mean, he would have needed a machete and like a 2-foot one in order to, even threaten the police who were there.
Well, the significant part of the video, which still burned in my mind, is the fact that LaQuan, though agitated, was purposefully walking away in full stride from the police officers. He was not approaching them. He was not threatening them with any. He was walking away with the hand down to his side wherever the weapon was. And this police officer pulled up and just pumped 16 shots into him.
And looking at the video, and when we all saw it, we thought, well, I thought it would be an open and shut case, naively, because of what I saw. And I figured, wow.
It wasn't an open and shut case, which is why they didn't show the video.
Right. I mean, but the interesting thing is the jury that came back last Friday, as we taped this on Wednesday, took hours. They didn't go into the weekend. They looked at it, they listened to the testimony, and they had no issue convicting the officer at all. I mean, they saw it for what it was, which was basically a flat-out gunning down of this
murder.
Yeah. I mean, it was the only thing they couldn't get was first degree, because first degree you actually have to plan to kill somebody. So they didn't get that, and I kind of knew they wouldn't get that. But they did get a second-degree murder charge against a police officer in Chicago, which is triply astounding.
Yeah, I was. It's not that I was surprised, because the video was as graphic as it was, and it was as obvious to the naked eye as it was. But what I was really interested in was the fact that the special prosecutor, a woman by the name of Pamela Brown, let me see if I can call her name up. Hell, our internet just went out again.
Yes, I'll take a look while you're talking, but I think you got the name right.
But what she did, it's a triple name, and I love the way it flows off the tongue.
Okay.
Pamela Brown, something or other Brown. But she was a special prosecutor appointed in this case, and she basically said outright that this was an outright police cover-up. The evidence was undeniable, and the fact that so many of those officers tried their best to come up with false and phony stories to cover up the murder of LaQuan MacDonald. She was definitely going after the code of silence.
Right. Yeah. She is pursuing those other officers involved,
Yes.
although no one else was charged. But
For the shooting, but
they
she
told,
charges conspiracy.
They told conflicting stories, didn't they? The police officers
There are
involved.
three. They made up stories
Right.
to the point where they were saying after the 16 bullets, he tried to get up and attack the police officers.
please.
Which nothing.
I didn't hear that. I didn't even. I didn't read
no
that.
evidence of that in the video.
I haven't read that. I haven't heard that.
There is, but anyway, she not only went after them for obstruction of justice. She was going after them for conspiracy, and there's a third charge that she's going after them for. And of course, the police union in the city of Chicago is steadily saying, this is a politically motivated prosecution of our officers who did no wrong. So, I don't know what to tell you.
If he actually had the nerve to say that, how did he justify it? That they did no wrong, shooting a young man in the back who was walking away from them.
Are you asking a rhetorical question?
I'm wondering if he had any. I'm wondering if he was
you're asking
stupid
a
enough.
rhetorical question.
I'm wondering if he was stupid enough to say why he felt that.
I don't know.
Anyhow, so the when does he go to trial?
The trial of these three officers that are charged with the conspiracy and
Right.
obstruction of justice begins on November 26th.
Okay.
This guy, Van Dyke, I believe he's now awaiting his sentence. I don't
awaiting
believe
his
he's been
sentence,
sentenced yet.
He was transferred to a different holding facility today, and I can't pull it up at the moment. But yeah, he's I think he has no bail, so they're holding him until such time as they give him the real sentence.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
On a positive note, there was a black man who was arrested for a shooting.
Part of our being black in America.
Yes.
This is a positive note. Go
This
ahead.
is a positive note. He
Well,
was held. He was
sort of a sordid one, but go ahead.
sort of. This man, a gentleman by the name of Stephen Spencer, age 31. He and a friend were in a bar in Pittston, PA. I've never heard of it.
Pennsylvania story.
Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Pennsylvania story. The county that this is in is predominantly rural, predominantly white. And he was in an all-white bar. He was engaged in a pool game, apparently, with a Caucasian gentleman. And after the game was over, the Caucasian gentleman refused to shake his hand. Now, I don't have any details other than that. I don't know what transpired, but somehow they all ended up outside.
Oh, boy.
And Mr. Spencer found it necessary. Mr. Spencer, who was licensed to carry this gun, by the way, it wasn't an illegal handgun, felt it necessary to protect himself by shooting this man. He was found not guilty by an all-white jury and released.
Hey, that's almost a first in the United
it
States
is.
of
Now,
America.
I'm not going to talk about the 15 months that he spent in jail waiting for trial.
Well,
Right.
okay, that's
Yeah.
another issue about the criminal
But, you know,
justice.
Right.
exactly. But they found, an all-white jury found him not guilty.
Hey, that's a positive twist of
Yeah.
being black in America. And then, Bob, did you have that other story, the more humorous but still silly and racist story of babysitting while black?
No, I didn't
You
do that
call
one
that
up.
one
No,
up?
no.
Let's see if I
But
can call
yes.
that one up.
Babysitting, I've got that. I've got that.
Oh,
Corey Lewis,
Okay.
a black man. Now I'm just going to read a little bit of this from. No, what was this? I think this was from the Griot, actually.
Okay.
Corey Lewis, a black man who runs an after-school mentoring program in Marietta, Georgia, couldn't eat dinner in peace at a local Subway and was followed back to his home and met by police because of so-called suspicious activity. What was the suspicious activity? The suspicious activity was the fact that he was having dinner with two white children. I know, isn't scandalous, isn't
Wow.
it?
Boy, I'm
now
surprised they didn't call out SWAT.
They may have. This woman, a woman in the restaurant questioned him, and indeed went so far as to follow him back to his home, calling the police in the process, who descended upon him and the children. The fact of the matter is, after they I'm not going to go through the back and forth. The police questioned the children. I guess they really had to do that regardless. And the kid said, "Hey, you know, he's our caretaker.
Yes.
We're in this after-school program, and he was taking us actually to another event after we ate." Period. End of
Yes,
story.
right.
They let him go. But
Yes.
this woman went so far as to not only confront him in the restaurant, she followed him home.
It's
Now, okay,
yes.
you can make an argument. I mean, there are people that will make an argument. Well, she was concerned. She didn't know. You know, looked odd to her, so she wanted,
Yes.
you know,
I'm sure
make
she
sure
was
that the
concerned.
children were safe.
Yes.
But why would she have been
Would-
concerned?
Let me put it this way. Would she have been as concerned if it were a white man shepherding
With
two
two
black
black kids?
children?
Exactly.
I wonder.
Would she be
Exactly.
calling the
I wonder.
police, and would she be following him home?
I have no
That is
comment
my
on that.
question.
Right. Yeah,
So
I
therefore,
have a comment, but I'm not going to make it.
I believe the trending things for this is last week, folk, when we aired,
Yeah.
was babysitting while black.
Yeah.
That was the
Yeah.
trending. That was the trending thing.
It follows with napping while black.
Yes,
You
yes.
know?
But the only good thing that came out of this is that to do something as innocuous as taking two kids to go to have a meal
I know.
and somehow get the police involved in what you're doing, the only good thing that came out of this is that it did not escalate into an injury
Exactly.
or worse.
Exactly.
That's about the only
Exactly.
silver lining I see there.
Yeah, as well it could have, because
certainly
there's a
could
very
have.
interesting further story, because the New Jersey police in Glassboro, New Jersey, released the body cam footage of the stop that was made a couple of weeks ago of these Rowan University college students, black college students, who were out in some shopping center in the local
Right.
New Jersey
I saw
area.
that video.
And evidently some person in the shopping mall said to one police officer, the people in that Charger, one guy came out of this store with a gun, and the gun was in his hand when he got into the Charger, and the Charger that's driving away, there's a man in there with a gun. And so the cops then radioed a bunch of other cops. I think there were 13 body cameras, 13 body cameras for this incident that were all released by the,
Simultaneously?
by
Okay.
the police department, quote, in the interest of full transparency and protocol.
Right.
So all these 13 officers, they chased these folks down by car. The kids ended up at their college university, Rowan University, but
Right.
when they got there, here are all these cops ducking behind cop cars, aiming guns at them, saying, hands up, roll windows up, do all this crazy nonsense, get out your car, kneel down, put your hands behind your back. And so they put them in handcuffs, and they basically treat them like felons,
Sure.
but saying, you're being detained. Now, they didn't say you're under arrest.
Right.
They didn't specifically manhandle them in any notoriously foul way, but they put them in handcuffs.
Yes, but
And they had them down on their knees.
I think that's a bit excessive.
Because well, there's a way that's excessive, and it's excessive to have somebody under suspicion get down on their knees with their hands behind their back when you haven't seen a weapon and you don't really know this is just going on
Right.
one person say so.
Right.
Right.
But the cop says, according to protocol, we have a report of a gun, we have to do this, etc.
All right.
But my question again, if the people who were in the car were not black and brown skinned people, would they be in handcuffs? Would they be on their knees with their hands behind their backs? I am inclined to think no, they would not, especially if they were college students already back on their college campus. That's just me.
The description that I heard when I saw it on TV was that they fit a description that they had received, had received
I know.
on the
They all-
radio. And-
we always fit a description.
We always
Yeah.
We always fit a description.
So
yeah.
and there was I heard some of the voices from some of the body cams. There was an attempt at an apology, I think, from one of the officers, or not an apology. I shouldn't say that. To explain what they were doing. But you're right. On the knees with your hands already handcuffed is a little bit. You're already
It's a
more or
little
less
excessive
not.
without any provocation. I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah,
You know.
these folks, they being black in America, folk,
And these are
just
two
cross section
Yeah.
of.
These are two honest college students who basically got degraded in the middle of a day when they actually had done nothing other than try to get educated on their own campus.
Yep.
And just,
Yep.
you know,
Went to
another.
the local shopping center
Yeah.
to do whatever.
So
Yeah.
I mean, it's moments like that you know gets under your skin, gets your blood pressure up. But it's like you said, another day of being black in America, and
Yeah, absolutely.
One last, not necessarily last, because this is an ongoing cycle, but another related article. When you read these articles, you get the related stories. Remember that, was it Dallas, that Texas shooting? Officer accused of killing man in wrong apartment is
Yes.
fired,
Oh.
police chief says.
Yes.
So that
Wow.
is the latest development on that particular crazy story. The wrong apartment.
Right.
You remember that one?
Oh, I remember that, yeah, which I still can't figure out how you can
we
go
didn't
to the
cover
wrong
that one at
apartment.
all. I think we were deep in Kavanaugh, deep in a bunch of stuff.
Excuse me.
We never covered that one.
No,
Or if we
yeah,
did, we just brushstroked it.
So she's just let go from her job.
She's been
So there's
fired.
no
Let me
prosecution
read.
or
Officer
further
Geiger
investigation?
was terminated for her actions. Hall said, this is the spokesperson for the police department. Dallas police officer charged with manslaughter in the wrong
She has been
apartment
charged.
fatal
She has been
shooting of a
charged.
man was fired Monday morning. That would be last Monday, folks, when we air, according to an email sent by Police Chief Renee Hall. Officer Amber Geiger, 30, quote, engaged in adverse conduct, end quote, when she fatally shot Botham Jean, 26, at his apartment on the night of September 6. Hall said her decision to fire Geiger was made after an internal affairs investigation concluded on September 9th. So there are further consequences besides being being fired.
Well,
I don't know
I
what the
hope
status
so.
is of the investigation about what charges she may or may not face. Maybe they updated on the bottom of this story. Let's
Well,
see.
the explanation that she gave is not being supported by other witnesses within the building because they heard an argument at the door, they heard some banging at the door, so the argument that she blundered into the wrong apartment and saw something isn't matching.
Oh, interesting.
I mean,
I hadn't read that.
they had heard some yelling in the hall, and before it happened, and then they, people hear yelling in the hall all the time, but and then later on they heard the gunshots,
gunshots?
and I don't know if anyone actually heard her give any orders as to freeze or to anything like that. And just a quick vignette. When I was in college in Madison, Wisconsin, I was living in an apartment building, and I heard the door. I'm sitting in the apartment. I heard the door knob jiggle, and then the door opens, and this guy with a key to my door looks at me funny, like, "Oh, I got the wrong door," and he shuts it, and he moves over one door. As it turned out, he had lost his key, and the management had basically given him a pass key so he could get in. But I guess he was new to the building, and in the rush he grabbed my door.
And that passkey worked on your
Worked
door.
on my door.
Okay.
So-
because it was a passkey.
Yeah, we weren't supposed to change the locks, but the next day I went ahead
changed
and
the lock.
bought my own lock.
Yeah, right. I can
So,
believe that.
but that's what this case reminds me of, and obviously I got out of it without a fatality. There's a way to get out of that situation without shooting nobody. So I don't get that case. I'm glad they fired her.
I don't get it at all.
I'm
either.
glad she's
No.
charged, and I don't buy her explanation.
Well, the lawyer for the family says they are pressing for further investigation and possible indictment of her for murder.
Right.
And while her lawyer is saying Amber Geiger is completely devastated by what happened, unfortunately today Chief Hall bowed to pressure from anti-police groups.
Anti-police groups.
Now,
Okay. The distraught family is an anti-police group.
Right.
Okay. Oh boy, I tell you, people will spin things any way to their advantage.
Yeah.
But she hasn't been indicted yet. I believe the investigation is still ongoing on what charges she's going to face. Family seems to want it to be murder. Her lawyer is talking about this should be investigated fully, etc.
Was there any physical examination of her after the event to see whether or not she had been drinking
I
or?
don't remember reading anything
No, nor do
about
I.
that.
No.
But that's not to say it didn't happen.
She was coming off a shift, so she was in uniform.
Yeah.
Oh, she was coming off a
Yeah,
shift.
so she wouldn't have been-
wasn't
wouldn't have been
sure.
drinking.
Well,
Well, there's a possibility
Yeah,
she
yeah.
wouldn't have been.
Yes,
But you
yes,
never
I
know.
understand
No,
that too.
but she was coming off a shift. Okay,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
different. I mean, in other words, she was not out partying all night and
Right.
incapacitated when she came home.
And if obviously if she knew the person and got into an argument or came there with an argument in mind, then that's different and that can be raised to a first degree. But I don't know that.
Well, yeah,
I'm
she might not have
speculating.
known him.
I have no idea.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know 10 people in my building, I'm sure, and there are over 400.
Okay. Yes. Well, you're a New
Well,
Yorker.
that's New York. And that's Staten Island.
Yes.
Oh, I shouldn't be doing that. Nobody needs to know where you are.
That's all right. They can
but
know.
anyway.
They're going to be there for longer.
Anyway,
You know.
okay, so that's our current issue of being black in America, folk. We need to actually bring you up to date on some other stories that we haven't really done significant investigation on. But off the top of my head, there's a significant story, South America, Brazil. There is a
No.
Donald Trump of Brazil, forget the
Yeah,
guy's
I
name,
forget the guy's
Barbosa
name too,
or
but
Oh,
somebody
the-
call him up.
The extreme right
There's a
winger.
right-wing
Yes.
guy, politician,
He's doing
who,
very
who
well,
is,
too.
who is actually the leading. He got something like 48% of the Brazilian vote because Brazil is in such chaos and turmoil that they're looking for a strong man
Right.
to help bring them out of their chaos. And this guy has promised all the same stuff that Donald Trump promised his base here.
Right.
And so he's leading the current electoral process in Brazil. I can't.
Yeah, I'm getting broken.
That's
That's
but-
close, but
yeah.
we'll call it up just because that's a name that should spring. Just say Brazil election, it'll come up. But the deal is, this guy is now in the runoff, and
Luckily, he didn't get the 50%.
He didn't get
That's the
50%.
only silver lining here. He
That's
didn't get the
correct.
50, so
Right.
so the opposition candidate is still in play
yeah,
in
but
the two-person
I'm
runoff.
going to make a prediction, even though I haven't really delved into it the way I normally look into international relations stories. I'm going to predict that because things are so drastic there. It was so drastic, folk, that Lula da Silva, who's actually in jail, had a better chance of getting elected from jail than even this guy. But because he was in jail, he wasn't eligible to run, even though folks wanted him to run. All right, but that's a given. That's
Okay.
that's that much I did pick up on.
This is
So since Lula da Silva is in jail,
right.
yeah, what's his name?
No, is this Bolsonaro?
Yes, that's
Bolsonaro.
the guy. Bolsonaro.
Yeah.
He's now the head guy, and because things are so bad, every once in a while I do one of these prediction stuff. I predict this guy's going to get elected in the runoff. That's how bad things are in
Really?
Brazil. Hey, Trump almost got elected here, and it was so
I know.
close he was able to steal it.
I know.
So,
I know.
so you see what's happening in
And
Europe.
they're doing a lot
You see
worse
what's
than
happening in
yeah,
Europe?
Yeah, I do.
All these right-wing, strong, autocratic strongmen are all getting elected because of the immigration crisis. Everybody's turning nativist, and they're all no longer collegially, internationally minded. They're no longer what's good for the globe is good for us.
Right.
It's what's good for us is good for us, and we don't care about anybody else. So I'm going to predict, I hope I'm wrong, that the Bolsonaro
I hope Bolsonaro.
is going to get elected in Brazil.
I saw something on CNN just last night or the night before. They went downtown and they covered some of the protests against the strongman, against the guy who got the 48%, and they talked about his lack of respect for certain parts of the community and whatnot. But they did a good thing. Then they went into a rural, poor neighborhood and they spoke to some of the people there, and they were like neck deep in support for this guy. They thought he was going to rise them up to. Raise up their income and do everything that he said he would do.
Bolsonaro.
Yes, because
What does that sound like?
yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
What does that remind you of?
That's exactly the point.
And
Yes.
is there, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a racial divide in Brazil.
Oh, wait,
as
wait,
well,
wait.
isn't
And
there?
that's not Brazil. If you go to Brazil and talk to Brazilians, Brazilians will tell you we have no racial problem. We
Yes.
have no, but all the black and dark-skinned people are at the bottom of the economic
Exactly,
ladder
that's right,
and barely make it into any positions of government, barely make it into secretarial positions, much less positions of government, and that's Brazil.
Right.
I mean, so, but the reason the Silva was very popular is because he tried his best to raise the living of the poor, and now, folks may not like the way he did it because he took from the rich and he nationalized a whole bunch of corporations. And theoretically, there was no follow-up to whatever his plan was, and so whoever came in didn't quite make it work. So Brazil is in chaos.
Okay.
Venezuela is in chaos.
Yeah.
The entire globe is rapidly descending into chaos.
Right.
And United States of America is no exception when you look at the last stuff. I said we weren't going to go Kavanaugh, but when you look at the process, the sideways we should look at it is when Mitch McConnell tried to claim he was historically following the usual Senate protocol by holding a seat for a year, a Supreme Court seat, by not even talking to Merrick Garland, and then not letting that nomination come up. And then rushing through the Kavanaugh, he's talking historical precedent. And who's the guy on Face the Nation? John Dickerson?
Dickerson,
Says,
John Dickerson.
No. That's not the way historically stuff goes.
Right.
We have the history that I know says you work collegially and you don't block nominations.
Right.
Well, the Biden rule, so Biden was talking theoretically. This is Dickerson.
Yes.
There was no candidate, there wasn't anybody, and it wasn't any time for a nomination. So his theoretical positing has absolutely nothing to do with what you just did.
Right. In
It's-
fact.
In fact.
Right.
See? And so Mitch McConnell wasn't too happy to be called on that, so
Yes,
he went back and forth. But Dixon at least understood that you don't let this fool stand up there and pontificate about how he's following protocol of history when he's actually lying through his teeth.
Yeah.
And we have a minute left.
So yeah, well, that's our sideways into Kavanaugh. So in the last 50 seconds, look, there were a couple of other stories, but there's no point trying to scratch at anything.
Right.
To wrap up, Raymond had something that he brought that he said we should actually take a look at, and it actually takes us back to our story. And what it says, to come full circle, living while black and the criminalization of blackness. It's a Vox lengthy article. And basically, it's actually outlining what black people have known for 400 years in this country. We're always at peril. There's no such thing as being safe in North America. Being black in America is always a perilous existence.
It sure is.
And with that, this has been Media Watch. I'm your co-host, Eric Tait.
I'm Bob Anthony.
And I'm Raymond Peterson.
And in the last 5 seconds, catch us on YouTube.
At Media Watch EVT and at Twitter at the same address.
And we'll catch you the next time.
3, 2, 1.
Hello.